What's it like using a 5-year-old budget-oriented Android smartphone that can run you as little as $25 in 2019? Today, I'll be looking at a phone that wasn't even designed to be great in 2014, let alone in 2019, the ZTE Speed. The ZTE Speed was a budget-oriented smartphone when it was released in December of 2014, going for as little as $100. Yet, today you can find it on eBay for as cheap as $25. Even back in 2014, no one expected this to be a good phone, just one to get them by in a pinch. So when I got this phone from my robotics team, who was retiring 2 of these phones, I expected it to perform poorly and overall be a bad phone to use in 2019. But frankly, I was surprised with how much it could do given the price. This phone has an all-plastic design. Yes, even the display, and it feels very cheap in the hand. The 3 buttons are mushy, yet they get the job done. It also has 3 capacitive buttons on the front that light up with a very dim LED. The vibration motor is also very tinny and feels pretty cheap, and this is especially shown when you use the buttons on the bottom since it vibrates every single time you hit the buttons. Overall, this is a very cheaply built phone, but it makes it durable and nearly impossible to crack since it's all plastic. And also it has a headphone jack, which is one thing I cannot say about some other smartphones. So when this phone launched, it had Android 4.4.2 KitKat, a now 5-year-old operating system, and since then hasn't had any major operating system upgrades, today sitting at the 4.4.4 KitKat security update. App support is also very poor on this phone. Most app developers dropped support for KitKat a while ago, so either you'll be getting some very old versions of apps or not getting the app altogether. However, I was surprised to find out that many apps still have some support for this version, like the newest version of Chrome and pretty up-to-date versions of YouTube, Reddit, and the Google productivity apps. Just install a launcher like Nova Launcher, which makes the phone seem newer and brings some new features to your home screen. So as for internals, this phone was powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 410 chipset running at 1.2 GHz, which by the way, some smartwatches use as their main processor. It had 1 GB of RAM, which left a lot to be desired in terms of multitasking. And it also had 8 GB of internal storage, which Android itself took about half of that. So don't expect to be installing a lot of apps on this phone. In fact, I had to uninstall many of the useless preloaded apps, which took up about half a gigabyte on their own. In terms of battery, it had a 2000 mAh removable battery, which is a decent size and lasted quite a while, especially given these low-power internals. Even to this day, I can easily get a few days off of a charge, but if you do happen to put a SIM in this phone, that may be another story. This phone had no such fast charging, so when you did have to sit down to charge, it will take quite a while to charge. And on top of that, 2000 mAh is still very small to today's standards, with many mid-rangers easily getting 4000 to 5000 mAh of battery capacity. Even given that, this is definitely one area where this phone is still good enough for today, lasting a few days on a single charge. As for this display, it was a 4.5-inch 540 by 960 display, using the TFT LCD technology. As a point of reference, the display on the iPhone SE was 4 inches, so it's slightly larger. Its bezels, however, are very chunky, sporting a 63% screen-to-body ratio, which is extremely low compared to even mid-rangers of 2019. For example, this Moto G7 Plus, with an 82% screen-to-body ratio, absolutely blows this phone out of the water. It was an extremely low-resolution panel, and is essentially like using a 480p display all the time. The colors are very tame, and the viewing angles are absolutely horrible. I mean, look at this. Veer just a few degrees off center and you're looking at a gray mess. Anyway, this panel doesn't get very bright, but it is enough to see what you're looking at if it gets bright outside. Overall, this display is not great, with a low resolution, poor colors, and horrible viewing angles, but it's enough to see what you're doing. So as for sound, this phone has a single backwards firing speaker that overall sounds pretty tinny. Here's a quick sound comparison. It's pretty easy to cover up with a single finger, and since it's backwards firing, it requires you to position your hand in a way that bounces the sound in your face. The loudspeaker on the top is not used for media consumption at all, and it's only used for calls, so this is a mono-only phone. It does have a headphone jack, however, which works well enough. In terms of cameras, this phone has a single 5-megapixel rear camera and a 2-megapixel front camera. The rear camera has software-based autofocus, which doesn't work that well in my opinion, and LED flash, which works fine. It can shoot video in 1080p, which was really surprising to me. However, the front camera can only do video in 720p. As for the quality, it's really bad. Every single slight movement of the hand leads to awful streaking and makes the photos look horrible. Almost like it was taken on a $25 smartphone. Colors are pretty washed out, and as for video, the streaking effect is even more pronounced. Overall, this is not a phone I would be using to do any type of photography or videography. So this phone overall isn't a very great phone, but that's obvious given what kind of market it was designed for. It wasn't designed to be a flagship competitor, but a budget phone designed to get you through in a pinch. Even given that, I was really surprised what it could do. It had decent app support in 2019 and could run basic tasks like YouTube watching and Reddit browsing pretty well. And as long as you weren't trying to do any photography, it was relatively fine to use. So, should you get it now in 2019? Absolutely not. But if you do have one lying around, it's a neat little phone that can get you by if your main phone dies. That's my look at the ZTE Speed in 2019. Did you have any questions? Leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so very much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button just below this video. If you'd like to watch more from me, I've picked out 2 videos on the left just for you. If you'd like to subscribe, there's my icon on the right. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! No one watches this far in the video, do they?